العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. May Allah accept from you your fasting, your praying. Shahr Ramadan is remarkable because it is a time that the blessings of Allah are so available for us. And that we have in the narration that the skies are open and that the doors to hell are closed. So if we do not focus in this month, if we don't try hard enough, then we will be of those who have the losers of the Shahr Ramadan. This month will come and this month will pass. But those who give their effort and worship in Allah's path, they will be the ones that at the end of the month they will see that they have reached something, they reached a high station, for example. So therefore you see that hopefully as the month is passing and day by day is going, it gives us, as we said, in Surah al-Fatiha, we say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. We ask Allah to guide us to the straight path. Hopefully we are noticing more guidance. And you're coming to know God more and more, hopefully even every day. And one of the issues is, what do we get guided to? To Allah. But we need to be guided to deen, in religion, in order to know God. Because religion is the path that tells us what to do, what not to do, what to believe in, what not to believe in. And the best way to be on the straight path is understanding the Imam of the age. Who is our Imam? Imam Mahdi. And it's through knowing him in Shahr Ramadan. Do you see the dua that you're doing every night? Dua al-Iftitah. It is a dua that is narrated from the Imam of the age, Imam Mahdi. And you pray for him. You complain to Allah about how few we are and how numerous the enemies are. These are very important things that we should be praying for this time period. So, one, do not take Shahr Ramadan lightly. And two, make sure that you do not take your prayers lightly in this month, your dua. Because dua in this month is mustajab, is accepted. Tonight we're going over one of the Surah 113, important surah of the Holy Quran, which is Surah al-Falaq. What prayer do we need to know this for? Surah al-Falaq, what prayer do we need to know it for? Salatul Layl, the witr salat. It mentions, in the tradition, for the brother who saved the masjid, please recite salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal faraj. Allahumma salla ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal faraj. Yes, reciting this has lots of reward. The tradition says about Surah al-Falaq, the Prophet says in hadith, shall I teach you two of the greatest surahs of the Quran? The companions agreed, and the Prophet taught him Surah al-Falaq and Surah al-Nas. These two, chapter 114, chapter 113. Recite them whenever you wake up or before sleeping, for example. Or we have this tradition from Imam Baghir, please recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Whoever recites Surah al-Falaq and Nas and Ikhlas in the witr prayer, because the night prayer, the last part, which is the most important, is witr, is that odd prayer with one unit only. Whoever does Surah al-Ikhlas and Nas and Falaq in the witr prayer, he is told, O servant of God, rejoice, for he has accepted your witr prayer. Your prayer is now accepted with this surah. We said, how did this surah come? It is said, according to some, the Sha'n al-Nuzul, that every surah usually has a criteria or a situation where that surah comes down is descended usually, or a verse. Why did it descend? The story has this, and some of the scholars say this is what happened, is that and this is what, there's a disagreement. Some say this surah is from Medina. Some say this surah was revealed in Mecca. And there's difference of opinion. But they say that the Jews of Medina, some of them, they came and did sorcery to the Prophet. And they did how we have it, and nafathatu fil uqad, which is to blow, and uqad means knots. They did a sorcery or magic, and they would blow on the knots. And some say here that they used sorcery against the Prophet. Now, did this really happen or not? That is one thing. Can even the Prophet magic be done to him and be influenced by magic? Some of the scholars disagree with this. They say the Prophet, sorcery cannot affect him. Because if sorcery affected him, it could affect his revelation, for example. It can affect his infallibility, for example. So regardless, this is one debate that we'll have. Those who are against it are like Marhum Tabarsi Majmul Bayan, who believe he's the author. He says that the surah is in Mecca, so he rejects it. He says that this story is bogus because the surah came in Mecca. The Jews were prevalent in Medina, so this was not true. 2, the idea that the Prophet could be affected by sorcery undermines his divine mission. How can in one part of his life he be affected by sorcery and he cannot fulfill his mission anymore? This is what Marhum Tabarsi said. If magic could influence his physical state, doubt could arise that could also his intellect and revelation be fake too? That's what Marhum Tabarsi says. So therefore, he says that they tried to do this, they tried to make him ill, but he was not affected. So let's go over this important surah. We have from the beginning, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Qul. Qul in Arabic means what? Qul. Say. Is it to one person, or is it, for example, to 2 people or to 3 people? Qul. To one. No, Qul is to one. Yes, Qul means say. Who should say? Who should say? Who's the Prophet, the Quran speaking to? Qul. The Prophet. Prophet say. Qul. Rasulullah say. A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. I seek refuge in the Lord of the daybreak. So one, we learn that this world is a dangerous world. And just how we gave the example, children seek refuge to their parents, we seek refuge to Allah. And when He promises, He says, seek refuge, what will happen? He will protect you because He's the one that's saying it. Allah is saying it. He says, say it. So therefore, I will protect you. He's not going to say it, and then I'm not going to protect you. Sayonara, for example, see you later. He's going to say it, and He'll protect you. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Falaq is daybreak. But falaq means to split. To split. Why do we call daybreak falaq? You see the light, the darkness, and you see the light, and the night changes to day, for example. You see that? Khaytul Abyad, that white line, that's daybreak. The other is birth of living beings, is also called falaq, like a seed. Did you ever see a seed that is broken in half when it wants to sprout? That is also called falaq. So some of the mufassirin here say falaq not only goes to the Lord, the Rabb, we said, the Rabb who is controlling, has dominion, has tashri, and has takween powers over the entire universe. He is the Lord of falaq, dawn break, or anything that breaks, like seeds. Who does that? Who causes this to break? This Allah, the seeds. Or 3, all of creation. Another opinion is falaq means all of creation, as everything originates from non-existence to existence. That's a big separation. From non-existence to existence is also falaq. So he's the Rabb of falaq, non-existent to existence. This is, Ayatollah Karim Shirazi gives these 3 opinions about falaq. But usually they translate it as daybreak. The second verse, So we seek refuge in the Rabb of Falaq, who has this power to cause. And sometimes you think about it, you're astounded. You see how many people are intrigued by like sunsets, sunrises. It is one of the most beautiful occurrences, right? You're at the beach. We're blessed, alhamdulillah, in Southern California. We have the beach. Wintertime is a good time for the mu'mineen to go to the beach because their eyes are protected as well. And you observe the beach, how it should be. And you look, subhanAllah, Allah, you can make the day turn into night, the night turn into day. You are doing this, so of course you can protect me. If you're the Rabb of the sun and the earth, can you also be my Rabb? Yes. So I should trust you. I should seek refuge in you. And we'll talk about today, we should not seek refuge in people. That has always been our mistake. I think I have a few strong friends, for example. They're very strong, they're trained. I think I'm very protected. But that is actually when I get harmed. But that one time that I'm all alone and everyone wants to get me, somehow Rabbul Falaq, Allah, will protect me. I have to make sure that my trust is in God, not in the people, because He is Rabbul Falaq. Min sharri ma khalaq. We have this class, so some of our friends are here, and it's for reverts. It's a class. Others can join because we're talking about beliefs. And it happens Thursdays. Now, I'm not sure if I'll have it tomorrow or not. But one person asked me this very important question. He's a revert. He says, we were talking about evil, and we said that evil, for example, does not exist. Evil is abstinence. Evil is relative to a person. Then he said this. He said, then why in the Quran do you say that قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. I seek refuge from the creation, from the evil that He has created. How come I say this? From the evil that He has created. Does God create evil? What does that mean in this verse? Does God create evil? Because it says clearly, مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ, from that evil that He has created. One way to look at this is the way that Al-Mizan looks at it, and he understands shar here to be harm of this universe that He hasn't created evil, because we say that evil, or philosophers or mutakallimin, or they say evil is the absence of good. For example, to make it a good example is this. When it's daytime here, the sun is shining a light on earth, right? It's daytime, you say that light is from what? Is it that light from earth, or is that light from sun? From sun. That goodness is from sun. Then when it becomes dark, and it's right now night, and there's absence of light, is that darkness from the sun, or is that darkness from itself, from earth itself? From earth itself. So therefore, everything good, some of the scholars, they give this analogy, everything good comes from God. Is this example, when the sun is giving light on earth, you say everything, you see the light, you say that everything is from God. But everything evil is from us, meaning that abstinence of that radiance and the nur and light of and guidance of Allah, when that doesn't happen, then that's shar, that's evil. That's one way, because it's from ourselves, from the abstinence of having that kamal from God. But he says here it's harm. Is there harm in this universe? Yes. Lots of harm. We harm ourselves. Some people harm themselves during iftar. Some people harm themselves during suhoor. Very dangerous during suhoor when they're trying to fast. They overeat too much, and then they have to bring it all up, for example, when they're sleeping. Very harmful. There's lots of harms. What other harm? Driving, for example. Toxic things. Harm from each other, from insan. People harming themselves. People, for example, when they're agitated, upset, sometimes harming each other in the family. When you look at it, this is a world of harm and danger. And I want to ask you this question is, how much harm have you been protected from? When you just think of how much harm there is. For example, has anyone recently gotten blood work done? And you see if that doctor is a bad doctor, for example, gets a lot of blood from you and gives a lot of tests. You see that there's a lot of different things that all has to be perfect. from from the blood, from calcium even to they look at the glucose, fructose, any glucose. They keeps going and testing to even the size of the red blood cells. Do you have white blood cells, for example? All these things, all of it has to be perfect in order for you to be healthy. And if something just goes a little bit wrong, it could be a sign of a death or a disease. So if you think of it, there's so much harm. This sharra ma khalaq, this world that He has created, there is things that harm each other, and we have to protect ourselves from it. But another way that some of the other mutakallimin say, that sharra ma khalaq, you can say, is that evil that humans do, the makhluk do to one another. That is not necessarily the creation of God. God created us to be good. God created all of us to be good. But relative to us, we think things are bad. When we do not control something, it becomes bad. Simple example, saliva. Is saliva good or not? It digests. The first way to digest is the saliva. It helps you when you chew. One of the ulama saw Ayatollah al-Uzma Burujerdi. He's a doctor. He saw him. He says the way he's eating his food is perfect. It's great because he's chewing it so well. And it helps digest it so you don't get indigestion, for example. But us, usually in iftar, we don't like to chew. We like to swallow. That is our problem. So this saliva is something good. But if a kid comes and spits, for example, not in this masjid, kids don't do this in this masjid, in the other masjid. They come and spit, for example, what happens? You say spitting is bad. Oh, what is that? What are you doing? That's bad. Because it's not controlled. Venom of a snake. You can see the sign of Rx, for example, the sign of medicine comes from like the sign of a snake. Because snake venom, in a way, can also be a medicine. For that snake, it's very good. He hunts with it. He eats with it. He defends. But for that person that comes and doesn't control and sticks his hand in that home of the snake or wants to bother it, for example, that becomes relevant to him, evil, for example. So Allah has made this universe a universe of khair and good. But relative to us, even something like tonight, it's raining. Right now, it's good generally. But relative to those right now, they're in Malibu or in, for example, Pasadena or in Palisades. For them, this is horrible because it causes mudslides. That is the limitation of this world, that in one aspect it is good, in one aspect it is bad. But generally, God has created nidamu ahsan, the best nidam, the best government, the best creation that He can. So relative to us, that shar is how we don't control, for example, these things. But regardless, what we have to do is separate ourselves from the evil. And how do we do this? We seek refuge from God. We ask Allah always to help us from all the diseases, from all the violence, from all the poverty and sicknesses and different acts of sadness, to protect us. Then the next verse is وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. And that is, we understand that this goes back to dark, the night, and from the evil of darkness when it settles. وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. Waqab is when it settles. When you look at nighttime, the evil of nighttime, a lot of maybe ER doctors, or maybe there's physicians here, or nurses, they say generally most of bad occurrences happen like 12 to 4. Like they say, if I usually tell my children, myself, do not be out at 12 unless you have something very important. You're going back from Laylatul Qadr or something. There's something important. Don't be out at 12 to 4 at night. That's usually when the trouble happens. Either when people are driving, they can crash into each other because of intoxication. Or because of, for example, acts of violence happen. That's when people might have more tendency to rob because they can't identify him. So Quran has given us also that the evil of darkness when it settles, maybe one way to understand is a lot of the mischief that happens at night. And it still continues this way at nighttime. Usually you yourself, you feel much safer at daytime compared to going somewhere at night. Right? Some neighborhoods that we have in LA is much different. You visit that at day than you visit it at night, for example. Then we go into these last two verses. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Nafathat is like blowing, and uqad are knots. So either this goes back to sorcery, that they would take knots and they'd blow into it, for example, and then suddenly something would happen. Maybe husband and wife would, for example, get divorced, just hate each other. Or maybe they would do witchcraft on someone. This other question is this, is that does witchcraft even exist? Sihr. Does it exist? Is it real? Or is it part of the imagination? Because we also have an imagination. My answer that usually now in our time period, even though we have traditions from Imam Ali that, as-sihr haqqun, for example, al-raqa haqqun, al-ain haqqun, the evil eye is real, jealousy is real, for example, or witchcraft is evil. In order for a person to do witchcraft, they have to know. They have to know there's a mysterious, world that we don't know about. One, they have to know and have skills how to do it. Some ulama say also they have to have a strong nafs and soul. They have to have a strong soul in order for that witchcraft to happen. And what breaks and makes the soul weak? Being pampered, too much ease. In the Western life, usually most people, we are dying from eating too much, not from starvation, for example. We're sleeping too much a lot of times. We're in comfort, air conditioning 75. So even if we try to become good at witchcraft, our soul is weak. So therefore it won't really work here. But if you go to other countries where they fight against the soul, even if they're not Muslim, they do these weird training. One guy, for example, held his arm up for like 15 years or something like that. They would do these things that we say is wrong. But it makes the soul very strong. And then they blow in to these knots, and then you see divorce there, divorce there, divorce there. It could happen. But what I want to say is this. We blame a lot of people. They give me sometimes they send me pictures, sometimes they do things. They say that, look, is this witchcraft? I don't know. I don't have that knowledge. Alhamdulillah, I'm not a witch, for example. Or, I don't have that knowledge. But generally, it's not. Generally, they don't know what they're doing. We have so many verses of Quran around us in our homes. This protects us. These verses of Quran you have in your homes. You recite Quran, you recite Surah al-Falaq, you recite Surah al-Nas. It protects you. It really does. But we love to blame others for our faults. I am mean to my wife, or wife is mean to me. I don't want to sacrifice. I don't want to build on my marriage. I don't want to compromise. Say, they did witchcraft. They locked us. When we did their aqd, for example, there was somebody there and they locked us. We hate each other now, for example. Well, maybe it's because of my behavior we hate each other. Or maybe it's because of her behavior, maybe both of us. So let's stop blaming everything on witchcraft. I don't think it's a major issue right now. If you ask me, I would say our major fault is from ourselves right now, not from witchcraft happening. But you should still keep an open mind and understand it exists. They say, I heard this story, I'm not saying is it true or not, but someone who has a book about it too is one of the Lebanese shuyukh that came during the Safavid time to Iran, and Iranians always think he's Iranian because he's actually Lebanese, a Sheikh Baha'i. Most people in Iranians, and he's buried in Mashhad, they think he's Iranian, because actually he's Lebanese. He came from Lebanon. Because the scholars, when the Safavids were in power, they brought the Shia scholars from Bahrain and Lebanon. Because at that time, majority of Iran was Sunni, except for a few Siqum, for example, some Kashan, for example. A lot of them had a majority Sunni. So Sheikh Baha'i, he has this plan for the development of the shrine of Imam Rida. He was a marvelous architect. If you look at Isfahan today and some of the designs and architecture he is uncompared to many people. They even tried to unravel some of the mysteries that he had. How to heat, for example, with one candle, a bath with one candle. They opened it, they couldn't put it back together. How did he do it? One candle can heat water, for example. So one way that he designed the shrine of Imam Rida, he wanted to use witchcraft. Now, witchcraft itself is haram. Do not do it. We're not allowed to do it. But he's a mujtahid scholar. For whatever reason, he was using this. And they say the story is this, that he wanted to not have people enter the shrine, not everyone. He wanted those that were corrupt, maybe impure. He wanted them, maybe they didn't do ghusl or something, whatever. They wanted the impure people. He wanted to put something in there so these forces would discourage those that were impure to visit Imam Rida alayhi salam. He was planning this as an architect. The king of that time had a dream. And he was planning, he relied on Shaykh Bahai. The Abbas, the Safavids, they loved Shaykh Bahai because of what he did for them. There's an interesting story. Before I tell the end of this story, I bring another story in between. They say once one of the kings asked Shaykh Bahai, from all this, the architecture, all these marvelous things you do, tell me, what do you want? I'm the king, I can give you whatever you want. He says, okay, I accept your offer. One day, let's go out in the town. I will ride the royal horse, and you will walk me, you will walk alongside me, which is an act of, nobility for whoever is walking, and then you have person on the royal horse. So, okay, one day he accepted. And Shaykh Bahai came, and people were amazed. Said, the king is walking, and Shaykh is on the royal horse. And then he said, you know why I did this? Because I wanted to show people the maqam and manzalat, the station of knowledge. That knowledge is more important than the king. That if you study well and you gain knowledge, one day you could become like this. I wanted to show the people knowledge is more important than political power. So anyways, to finish this story, Shaykh Bahai was planning something so that people would not come into the shrine, those that did not qualify maybe, or those that were not pure. The king has a dream, and Imam Rida alayhi salam comes to him in the dream and says, no, this plan is right. Your plan, do it this way. And the design ended up being in a way that everyone came in. The Imam Rida alayhi salam didn't want Shaykh Bahai's, according to this again, story, didn't want Shaykh Bahai's use of, in a way, magic to make sure that some do not enter the shrine. He wanted everyone to enter. And then Shaykh says, Ajab, Imam Rida, he wants everyone to enter his shrine, even those that are impure, even those that are, for example, corrupt from within. He wants everyone to come in. Now, this is one of the interesting, again, if this story is true or not, but it shows you that, yes, he even has a book about witchcraft, but tonight, do not go and test it out and try to find this book and use it against me, inshallah. Just focus, inshallah, on reciting Surah al-Falaq. Let's go to the other part. So that's about witchcraft, which is a reality, but maybe in modern times, it's not a big issue that we have to worry about. Inshallah, you'll be protected by reciting the surah. The last verse is وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. So we see the first shar, evil, is that which exists in this world, the harm and the evil. And this is a very dangerous world. We forget sometimes. 2, the evil of darkness when it settles at night, especially. The violence and the crime that happens at night. From the evil of the blowers and the knots. And uqad here can be anything. Some, like I told my Karam, say knots can be anything. Uqud also refers to business transactions. Why do we call business and transactions an aqd or uqud, a knot? Because buyer and seller, there's a knot between them. Now they have a contract between. Or nikah is known as an aqd, because husband and wife, they get tied together, for example. Or aqidah and i'tiqad is also an aqd, because your heart gets tied with that belief. Your heart gets tied with that belief. So here he takes a mutlaq and a absolute interpretation of nafatat, meaning any type of evil, maybe saying, whisper, effect on these contracts, either in beliefs, for example, in marriage, for example, or in business, that we seek refuge from these things that destroy these knots, these contracts, this marriage, for example, these people that do this, we ask Allah to protect us from this shar, this evil. The last is this, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and from the evil of someone who has envy when he envies. Does jealousy exist? Yes. Does it have an effect? Yes, it does have an effect. We have to be very careful. One of the stories that's very popular that you know is the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, when he had his dreams that he saw the stars and moons, for example, doing sujood to him. And his father tells him not to present this story to your brothers. Do not present it to your brothers. Sometimes fathers like one kid more than the other. We're told generally when you kiss one child, kiss the other child. Be fair. But in the heart, if one is like Prophet Yusuf, and then the others, for example, is like, killers trying to kill Prophet Yusuf, obviously, Prophet Yaqub's heart is going to go towards more Prophet Yusuf. So they finally cannot bear that love that the Prophet had, that jealousy. So, from the jealousy, we seek refuge from jealousy. So finally they said, Uqtulu Yusuf, kill him. Let's kill him. That's a good idea. How are we going to do it, for example? They say, okay, we're going to put him in that well, for example. Put him in a well where there's no way he will come out. And then, miraculously, he prays, and some of the versions say he asked the Prophet and his noble family for help. And finally, a caravan that was crossing saw him, met him, and they purchased him as a slave. They thought he was a slave, and they sold him for something cheap. They didn't purchase, they took him and they sold him. So that is the story of jealousy and Prophet Yusuf. His brothers were jealous. So there can be sometimes sibling rivalry, right? Or sometimes I'm jealous with other people. For example, the other sheikh has a nicer abba than me, for example. I say, he has got, mashallah, where did he get that? How do we know if we're jealous people? What are the signs? If someone's good is mentioned to you, and you try to puncture it, and try to say, for example, one of the scholars was saying this, he writes, for example, a good article, interesting article. And you say, you know what, he copied it, he plagiarized. He used AI, for example. You try to bring it down. No, you're jealous. Or he comes to masjid with a new car, expensive car. His business, he's not very an honest businessman. You try to smash him. Whenever you get bothered when someone comes with something good, know that you have that jealous tendency. To feel a little awkward is okay. Feel a little awkward. But to act upon it is not allowed. To act upon it. Jealousy means that I don't want that person to have that thing anymore. If it's the Abba, for example, you say, I wish he didn't have it. Or if he speaks very well and I don't speak well, for example, I wish, nobody listened to his speeches, for example. Or when it comes to business, he's good at it and I wish he becomes bankrupt. This happens. So this is a reality that, why do we think it? Quran mentions it, in one of the verses. This verse says, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajab. Quran says, Am yahsuduna an-nas ala ma atahum Allah min fadlih? Or do they envy the people from what Allah has given them of His bounty? From this verse, we understand that if you are a jealous person, you are questioning God. Because God gave us these bounties. If someone is handsome, you're asking Allah, because nobody can, change how they look like before they're born, for example. Because Allah does tasweer of us when we're in the arham, for example, when the wombs of our mothers. He gives us that face when we're in the wombs of our mothers, and then we're born. Allah gives us that. How tall you are, what gender are you, for example. All these things Allah decides. And what type of family will you be raised in? A rich family, a poor family? Will you be in America? Will you be in, for example, in somewhere else? Allah decides. There's a lot of things we don't decide. So when you are jealous, especially of traits that a person doesn't have to work for, they're just given, God given, then you know that you're questioning God. God, why did you do this? Why did you do this? You're questioning Him, just how shaitan questioned God. Why should I do sujood, for example? Another example of jealousy, which is more extreme, is the first qatl that happened in this world. What was the first murder that happened on earth from humans that we know of? Habil and Qabil. Who's the murderer? Which one is he? No? Maybe I shouldn't ask so that you don't do backbiting of Habil, poor Habil. Don't do tuhmat of, please. Remember, if you want to know who the qatil is, the one with the qaf, Qabil. Qabil is the qatil, is the murderer. What happened? Prophet Adam liked Habil more. Prophet Adam wanted to give his inheritance or his prophethood or his lineage in prophethood and guidance to Habil because he was better. And compared to Qabil, which was older, he was the elder brother. He thought, maybe I should be your successor. Why Habil? He becomes upset. Prophet Adam ﷺ gives him a test. Says, why don't you both of you sacrifice from the stock that you have, this family, this sheep or lamb or whatever animal it is, from this herd that you have, give one and sacrifice it. Let's see who is better, for example. Habil gives from the best. He gives from the best because it's going to be a sacrifice for Allah. He's going to give the best. Qabil gives from the worst. Probably the dead, the sick animal that has like 3 legs or some whatever. That one. Then Allah does not accept, they set it on fire or whatever. Allah does not accept the sacrifice of Qabil. Allah accepts from Habil. Now he's infuriated. Now he's mad. So he takes Habil and he murders and kills his own brother. He murders him and doesn't even know what to do with the body. This is the first murder. What is he going to do? Poor, Habil, Shahid Habil is there. And he's wondering what to do with him until he comes and sees 2, for example, ravens. One died and they buried the other one. Says, oh, that's what they do, and he buries. And Prophet Adam gets so upset, he curses his son. This shows you some of the prophets' sons were bad. They say, preachers are preachers like son or daughter. They sometimes some of the prophets, the sons were notorious. So therefore, you see in this example that hasad, one of the first examples that Quran is telling us seek refuge from jealousy, is because from the beginning, they murdered each other because of jealousy. So we ask Allah to protect us from these few things. We'll say the surah again, inshallah, and pray. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of daybreak. Min sharri ma khalaq. From the evil that which He has created. Wa min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab. And from the evil of the darkness when it settles. Wa min sharri naffathati fil uqad. And from the evil of the blowers and the knots. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. And from the evil of the envier when he envies. Ya Allah, we ask you, these nights of Ramadan are truly a blessing for us. And give us, inshallah, ma'rifat of Shahr Ramadan, inshallah, understanding of how great Shahr Ramadan is, inshallah. Give us the ilham of its ma'rifat, inshallah, and His fadl. Ya Allah, allow us to have a true fast, inshallah, our entire body fast, inshallah. Ya Allah, answer our prayers. Many of us have important prayers for ourselves, for our community, internationally, for what has been going on for these last 15, 16 months. We have to pray, and the best time to pray is now. Allah, remove oppression and struggle from the life of the Palestinians, the Lebanese, and all those afflicted with dhulm and oppression, inshallah. Give victory to those who fight against oppression, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to cure all the sick, have mercy on our departed, especially those who have established this masjid, and to, inshallah, accept our worship this month. Allow us to have ma'rifat of the Quran and understand the Quran and act upon the Quran, and allow us to get close to the Imam of the age and expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.